this is a really interesting point. This is not about the four levels of being. This is something separate, although connected. This is on page 33. So he's quoting Maurice Nicole, and I will read some of it here. So he says, "We can all see another person's body directly. We see the lips moving, the eyes opening and shutting, the lines of the mouth and face changing, and the body expressing itself as a whole in action. The person himself is invisible. If the invisible side of people were discerned as easily as the visible side, we would live in a new humanity. As we are, we live invisible humanity, a humanity of appearances." So I thought this was pretty interesting. The author says, just below that, Schumacher says, "We do not grasp that we are invisible. We do not realize that we are in a world of invisible people. We do not understand that life, before all other definitions of it, is a drama of the visible and the invisible." That actually was a quote, I think probably from the same author. So from Nicole. So I thought it was interesting because, again, it has this idea that the motives and the will of people is invisible. We can see their physical beings, but whereas when we see a rock, we can analyze everything that this rock is. We can analyze its chemical composition, its ore quantities, whatever we want. It is completely bare and naked to us, right? A tree we can analyze also in the same respect for the most part. We can analyze it completely for what it contains, but we cannot always predict where a flower will show up, where an acorn will show up, etc. There may be a little bit less certainty there. Same with an animal. Now, what about at the level of man? He's saying that the motive power of a human being is invisible, because we cannot directly access a person's thoughts and feelings and interests and motives and etc. And what a strange, and the Nicole guy says this would be a new humanity. If we could access, if we had, think of like the Borg, Star Trek, if we had access to everyone's thoughts and feelings, you couldn't hide anything from your fellow man. That would be a completely different existence that we would have. We would not be able to have secrets. We would not be able to hide things. We would have everything bare and naked. And what the author is saying here is that this is a completely different way of being. Our person, our willpower, what makes us not dead, what makes us alive, is something that is invisible, because we cannot access the will of other people. We only can observe their actions or what they say, etc. But all of that is not 100% what they might be thinking. Like, people can lie, people can be deceitful, people can defraud you, etc. It's hard, and this is probably one of the interesting questions, or kind of the struggles at dealing with relationships is that there's a trust issue. Trust only exists because we do not have a direct line. We do not have a hard line into people's thoughts and feelings. There will be no need for trust. Trust is a kind of faith, right? There will be no need for trust if we could directly access, and we had a lie detector on everybody. Can you imagine if we were a species in which, if you were to lie, there would be some, like, your hair would turn a different color or something like that. It would be impossible to do that because of our nature. See, that would restrict our social organization. That would change our social behaviors. But because we can hide those things, and because we can kind of be two-faced, and we can be deceitful and things like that, it's a different way of living amongst ourselves. And then we have to invent these concepts like trust, for example. But if we, again, had this capacity to see the person, to see what makes them who they are, which is their willpower, then this would be something completely different. We wouldn't need a concept like trust, because we could just easily see if that person was being honest with us or not. And so instead, We live in what he calls the humanity of appearances. It only appears to us what a person is doing or thinking, but we cannot be certain about what their motives are because we cannot access that. And to put a cap on that, the author on page 34, he says, this is again another progression from the totally visible mineral or matter to the largely invisible person. And this quest then, for example, in psychology, which has struggled to be a science, psychology is trying to see the invisible. That's why behaviorism was so big and still exists in some respects. They're trying to see the invisible part of us. They're trying to devise instruments, just like you devise a microscope or you devise a mass spectrometer. The psychologists try to develop instruments to see the will and the motives of people. And that for them is a way of making a science out of understanding human beings.